I'm going to read to you from this book, Don't Bungee Jump Naked, and Other Important Stuff by Jeannie Robertson. Let me introduce Jeannie Robertson first. I'm a speaker, a humorist, and I've been one for a long time. It's been my good fortune to have given speeches with signed contracts and make people laugh since 1963. It has always kept me as busy as I could possibly be, and I have been quite content and happy in my career. One of my YouTube clips, Don't Send a Man to the Grocery Store, has gone viral, meaning it reached a large number of people, of views in a short time. It was soon followed by a second viral clip titled, Don't Bungee Jump Naked. And my DVDs were being shown every week to travelers on motor coaches across the country. My business manager thought that due to this exposure, I had enough name recognition to appear in one-woman ticketed theater shows across the country. And I was so thoroughly entrenched into the mindset of booking speeches for conventions and corporate meetings that I was apprehensive and certainly didn't get excited about his idea at first. Actually, I was extremely hesitant and had to be convinced by my long-term assistant, Tony, to give it a try. I had many questions. Who would come? How would we promote the shows? How would we sell the tickets? What if only a handful of people showed up? Thank you, people. Why would I take time from my lucrative, busy, and more importantly, fun speaking career to try theater shows? And of course, my husband, Jerry, AKA, also known as Left Brain, was concerned about who would pay for this. You gotta love the guy. Jeannie Robertson began her speaking career when she was Miss North Carolina in 1963, and no one has milked it for more. Morley Safer said that on one of his 60-minute shows. I thought it would be helpful if I included a brief summary of how my good fortune led me from a local beauty pageant in Graham, North Carolina. And Graham's not far from here. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but I know it's not far. This brief review will also add a little background to many of the stories that I selected. My advice, read this part first that I'm doing right now, and you won't have to try to put it all together. I was a rising junior at Auburn University in the spring of 1963 when I went home to Graham, North Carolina, one weekend to enter the Miss Graham pageant. I had never done anything like that before. Growing up, I spent all my spare time playing basketball. There were 6 of us competing in the Graham pageant, sponsored by the local JCs, and we were all friends from high school. The night of the rehearsal, we joked about drawing for title and prizes. Of course, we didn't do that. At the conclusion of the pageant the next night, I was honored to be named Miss Graham. Later that summer, I represented Graham in the Miss North Carolina pageant. At that time, it was the largest state pageant in the nation, with 84 contestants, each of whom had won her local pageant. The competition lasted 4 nights, with the final night broadcast on statewide TV. That's a big deal. I stood out a little due to my height and was funny during the talent portion. I also seemed to click with the judges during my interview. Actually, it was fun. And I started my year as Miss North Carolina the very next day. This victory put me in the Miss America pageant in Atlantic City, New Jersey in September, or as we say in the South, Miss America pageant. At 6'2" tall, I was the tallest contestant that ever competed in the Miss America pageant. I didn't win, you already know that. If I had won the title of Miss America, I would have put it on the cover of the book. As Miss North Carolina, I was required to drop out of college for a year to make public appearances. I was paid for each one. Not much by today's standards, but I was paid. The good thing was that I was usually asked to say a few words. It took me about a week to realize that when I spoke, I could make people laugh. And when they laughed, they seemed to enjoy my part on the program, and so did I. Pageants were huge at that time, and I developed a statewide reputation for being funny. After that year of speaking, often several times a day, I crowned the next Miss North Carolina, and the following week spoke at 3 events in the state, and I never looked back. Oh, I finished college. I returned to Auburn and eventually graduated with a teaching degree, using my pageant scholarship money to pay for the last 2 years, and I continued to give speeches on most weekends. Being Miss North Carolina literally changed my life. It altered the direction of my career, led me into full-time professional speaking, and now into theater work as a humorist. As Morley Saver said in a 60-minute segment, Jeannie Robertson began her speaking career when she was Miss North Carolina in 1963, and nobody has milked it for more. I've now been speaking professionally for more than 56 years, and I still love making the same point I made while traveling around as Miss North Carolina. Look for the humor. Of course, my stories have changed as my life has changed, but I'm proud of the fact that I have always written my own material on what I see happening around me every day. It's been a big, great ride so far, and when my career ends, or When the star comes down to take me away to the big stage in the sky, people should not be sad. I hope they will think of me and laugh. If you're so distraught you can't bring yourself to laugh, visit my grave site. On my tombstone, you'll see 26696 1038. It's my Delta frequent flyer mileage. Surely the airline should retire it. Now, here are the main characters in the book. To get started and save you time trying to figure out all the characters in here, let me introduce them and thank them for letting me talk about them in shows and write about them here. Included is a little information that might come in handy. Jerry Robinson is what a lot of people call my husband because Jerry is his name. I call him LB, or more often, left brain. He's a willing source of much of my material and has to be the greatest sport in the world. Left brain is the part of the brain that can express language. Tony is the national coordinator of everything in my office. She has run my office since 1979. She's the queen of everything, in charge of everything, loves Auburn, where she went to the university, as much as I do. Oops, make that as much as anyone. Like a sister, but nobody else will think she's my sister because Tony is 5 foot, nothing at all. My career has been a great ride, but it wouldn't have been as much fun without Tony. Then there's Norma Rose, my bestest friend. We always give our little girls in the South 2 names in case they want to be in a pageant. You can have only one bestest. She met our sons, and they played high school sports together. Has an accent more Southern than mine, and when we hear her in a clip, you'll hear that wonderful Southern accent. Beaver is my only child. He's named after a rodent. He has always had me in the palm of his hands. The source of many stories, some that can't be told. He's the quickest and funniest person I've ever known, but then I could be biased. Ask his friends. Oh, wait, his friends say, I want to come back as Beaver. He can also be irreverent and push the envelope and his mother's buttons. An Eline University graduate. Dana, when she was a 9-year-old girl, I watched her grow up. Then walked down the aisle to marry our son, an East Carolina graduate. I always loved her, and I always will. I love the way she throws in these little personal remarks into her cold facts. Ryder, R-Y-D-E-R, is our first grandson. It's named after a truck. Elon University graduate, happy guy, always smiling, better at charming airline miles from me than anyone I know in the family, except maybe Beaver. Also known for saying, Nene, do you have any extra money in the bottom of your purse? I think a lot of grandmothers have the title Nene. I think that comes with age. Gray, Gray, is the younger grandson. He's named after a crayon. Can now write cursive, and also a happy guy, always smiling. Elon University, and occasionally calls to see if I'm in town. If so, he always asks, can I bring some dirty clothes over? And no matter how busy I am, I say, sure. Catherine is my older sister. We're still working on our relationship. That's what happens when you share a room growing up, and the older sister always has to wear her outgrown clothes. We both know we really do love each other. Graham, North Carolina, is my hometown. We may live a few miles away now in Burlington, North Carolina, near Elon University, but there's no doubt about it. I'm from Graham, North Carolina, and proud of it. I went to the Graham High School, was a cheerleader, but we were not in that era. We were not tossed in the air. No easy feat to set somebody 6'2" into the air. And then you'll meet a lot of strangers in my book. Those that I encounter in my travels, and they are definitely part of my cast of characters. Wish I knew all their names so I could give a more personal thank you. They have given me countless hours of laughter and story ideas simply by something they have said or done. Included in this group are the people who attend my events and chit-chat with me before or afterwards, or ask a question when I do a question and answer segment in my shows. You'll read about many of them. Who knows? Maybe you'll find yourself in one of my stories. To illustrate that the first place to look for humor is in the mirror, I'll tell you some of the funny things that happened surrounding my recent femur surgery and long rehabilitation with. To start with, I'll bet you want to know exactly how I broke it. Mountain climbing, snowboarding, bungee jumping, any of those would make a great story. But the answer is none of the above. Here's what happened. For more than 30 years, my husband, Left Brain, and I have had a holiday dinner for neighbors in a several block area, children always included, of course. We serve the traditional Christmas meal of hot dogs and ice cream sundaes. Several years ago, in the afternoon of one of those ice cream sundaes, hot dog suppers, I had more than 100 wieners out of the tight plastic packages and had a bowl of them in my arms. I was bringing them to the house from a refrigerator out back. It's a little building out there, not in the yard. We're Southerners. I came in through our game room door. In our house, game room is a fancy name for a garage with a ping pong table. Somehow, I slipped, sat down on my leg, and broke the left femur straight across the top and right above my knee. It was awful and instantly changed my life for a year, if not longer. Oh, the pain. There I was on the game room floor, barely able to move. On top of that, when I fell, I apparently threw the bowl in the air in an attempt to save the wieners. They went flying and landed all around the room. Fortunately, I had my cell phone in my pocket and it slipped out. I called my husband to come downstairs fast. I called my assistant, Tony, to come back to our house fast. I called my bestest friend, Norma Rose, to come with her husband, Alan, as fast as possible. I thought if they could stand me up, something might pop back into place. They all came, gave a quick look, and suggested we call an ambulance fast. In a matter of minutes, an ambulance arrived, and 2 emergency technicians, EMTs, were inside my house looking down at me. They turned out to be excellent at what they did medically, but they left the door open to the game room, and dogs. Notice my New York accent, dogs, not dogs. My husband on the scene by that point, exclaimed, "Wow, did you see that dog?" I did not respond. I simply stared at him. I was still on the floor, in great pain. That's when I learned that when you break a bone, people think you've lost your hearing. One of the empties said to the other, "She's going to need some morphine to even put her on the stretcher." The other one, looking down at me, answered, "She's going to need a lot of it. She's in a large body." I scooped up as many wieners as I could reach and threw them at him. One wiener went straight up in the air and came back down on my face. The other one landed on his shoulder. He was lucky the dog didn't immediately jump on him. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and tossed the wiener across the room. The dogs followed it like going after a good thrown stick. But I was still on the floor. My husband had the good sense not to ask if I had seen that dog retrieve that weenie, although he asked the same question later, and I explained to him that a dog doesn't retrieve something it practically swallows whole. Apparently, there's a law about how much morphine can be in an ambulance at one time, or maybe they need extra people to move, and this is in quotations, such a large body. Before long, another ambulance arrived with more EMTs and morphine. Neighbors gathered, Dogs that were contained in common backyards were barking and howling. Tony shut the back door, but left Brain. Tony, Norma Rose couldn't get the dogs that were inside to leave the Wieners. Left Brain was swatting at them with a broom. Two dogs almost got in a fight until Left Brain got two Wieners, dangled them in front of their eyes, and tossed them in two different directions. Clarification, he tossed the Wieners, not the dog. One to the far side of the game room and one up the hall. That hall, deeper into the house. Oh, I thought I was losing my mind. I started laughing, but forced myself to stop because it hurt more. You've heard the expression, it only hurts when I laugh. I was getting loopy by then, but the two teams of EMTs got me on a stretcher, and we headed outside, through the assembled neighbors, and finally into an ambulance. I felt like an athlete being carried off the court and gave everyone a thumbs up. A man I didn't know asked if his dog Corky was inside, and I heard somebody say, "No, Corky's over here. I've got her." It was all a blur to me after my second morphine shot, but I was coherent enough to know I was finally in the ambulance and we were set to leave. After all this happened and surgery was completed, my professional speaker buddies started calling, and each said about the same thing. "Okay, Jeannie, we heard what happened. 3 months in rehab? Are you going to be able to practice what you preach?" They meant, was I going to be able to find humor in what had happened, because looking for humor is what I believe in strongly and illustrate my speeches and theater shows. It's also my belief that the first place to look for humor is in the mirror. Yeah, right. I've lost my place. Excuse me a moment. I couldn't move, but I sensed I would need to take a few notes. Being Norma Rose, she wrote on the top of the tablet, Norma Rose was here first. I thought about all this and the dogs and told my speaker buddies who were calling that I already had started looking for humor, and I actually found some. By the time the ambulance was about to pull out of our driveway, neighbors were everywhere. That's when a woman in our hood, who shall remain nameless in this book, but trust me, other women in my neighborhood know who she is, suddenly slapped her hand on the window next to the driver. Wait, wait! It made the driver jump. I think he had driven a hearse somewhere in his life, and he startled easily. Then she shouted through the window for all to hear, "Ask Jeannie if the party tonight is off." My broken femur meant I was facing 3 months in a rehab facility, unable to put any weight on my leg. Left Brain came several times a day, of course, and Tony came every day. But my new, really good friend during that time turned out to be a little bitty TV on the wall in my room. Millennials will be happy to know that TV and I bonded. This bedroom situation started in December at the height of college football season and continued through the Super Bowl and on into March Madness. I watched every sporting event on every channel I could find. Luckily, I'm a sports fan. I was even a physical ed major. Excuse me, let me be more specific. I was a health, physical education, and recreation major. They used to lump everything together. I graduated from Auburn University in the Southeastern Conference, but I didn't even realize how much I knew about football, probably through osmosis. Then, one night, oops, okay, you won't believe it. That's exact. Let's show it now, right? Yeah, I just did. Okay, we have a video that you can get the flavor of Jeannie Robertson. She's just delightful.